Let's dive a little bit into the terminology and the interface of the tag manager. Now, once you've logged in and you've got your tag manager up and running, you should be able to get your tag manager code by clicking on the bucket ID. So once you click on it, you'd be able to get this code, which you should be able to implement on your site. So that's the straightforward access to that snippet code. You would notice that there are three tabs at the top. So there's a workspace tab, there's a versions tab, and there's an administration tab. Now, if you want to give other people access to the tag manager, you want to invite them, you can have, obviously under admin, you will have user management. If you want to audit what's going on in the account or what times, what happened, or who changed what, they obviously you get a log of the account activity. In addition to this, you have some other sorts of access to administration tools, like you can import containers, you can have an approval queue, you can even have notifications, and a few other settings that we will go into a little bit later in the course. Now, if you go back to the workspace, you also have this green tag here, which actually shows you the version of the tag manager. And remember, when you start out with your first tag manager, you have to publish the changes that you've made in this interface. So if I've gone ahead and added a tag inside my tag manager, the changes wouldn't be live until I can actually click on the submit, fill out these details, and click on publish. So if you just opened up a tag manager account, go ahead and write a descriptive name and just say something along the lines of getting started, right? And just starting as something that you want to create, and then click on publish. The reason you would do this is because if you haven't published your first version, you won't be able to preview or debug your configuration in Tag Manager. Now, once you've done that, you can obviously come back and you can obviously come back and click on the green box there, and it will give you an entire overview of what's involved in your tag management. Now, if I go back and simply click on the versions at the top, you can see that it gives me all the versions that have been published. So there's obviously version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it gives me the name and and sort of the name sort of makes an indication of what changes were made. So I added a LinkedIn code, that's why I called it LinkedIn. I added a Hotjar code, called it Hotjar Live. Added analytics trigger, called it analytics trigger, and so on and so forth. It tells me which version is live. And the good thing about this version management is it also helps me go back and publish a previous version if I simply want to change the status, or if I feel like I just want to fix an error that I've made with the latest live version. So this version management is pretty handy. It helps you go back or forward based on what version of tag you want to use. And it's very nifty in that it keeps track of all the changes that you've made over time, when you made the change, and so on and so forth. Now, back to the workspace, we have three main things that we need to understand: tags, triggers, and variables. Tags are simply, just to put it mildly, tags are simply the codes you get from various different software. So with analytics, this piece of code here is the tag itself. With LinkedIn, this piece of code here is the tag itself. And so if you go to Facebook, they'll give you a pixel code, which is again the tag itself. So every piece of code that you get, those are called tags, and you basically store them. And we'll go into a bit later into tags. Triggers are conditions, or as the name suggests, when do you want these pieces of code to run? So let's say, for an example, if I'm running a Google Analytics code, I would like the Google Analytics code to fire on every single page on the website. And so I'd have to define a trigger that says, fire the Google Analytics code on every single page. So all pages on the website. So triggers are basically condition. When do you want something to happen? And variables are just simply containers that will, or sorry, not containers, but let's say just simply, variables that store a certain value. So let's say I have a Google Analytics property which has a certain ID, which is this UA144, whatever that ID is. So it helps me store this value into a variable called Google Analytics, which I can then later use either with triggers or tags to be able to not to have to define that again and again and every single time. So those are the three important things, which again, as I said, we will dive a lot more into detail as a part of this course. But that's basically the terminology of how this whole thing works. Then you have folders and templates, which are basically just there for improving your productivity. But we'll mostly be dealing with tags, triggers, and variables to be able to learn the nitty gritty of the Google Tag Management as a part of this course.